Good morning, everybody. My name is Todd Schimpf. I am the communications manager for the Office of Medical Marijuana Use. Myself and Cassie Hurley, who is our IT manager for the Office of Medical Marijuana Use, will be presenting today. These are going to be the subjects and stuff that we're covering. We're going to, of course, talk about what the OMMU is real quick. We had an update go out on May 27th that changed. It was an infrastructure and security update for our patient side of the registry. So Cassie is going to cover that. And then you can see the different subjects we'll talk about. And then we're going to talk about Know the Facts, where you can find a lot of the information that Cassie's going to talk about. We're going to talk about what patients need to know, and then we'll just kind of look at numbers and stuff for the program. So at that point, again, we're the Office of Medical Marijuana Use. We oversee Florida's medical marijuana program. So we regulate the medical marijuana treatment centers, the patients, the caregivers, and then work in conjunction with medical quality assurance to oversee the physicians. So we use the statute and stuff to kind of monitor the system and to make sure that the program is as safe as possible for our patients. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Cassie so she can talk about the update.
Which button do I hit? Oh, I see. Good morning. Let's see. So the Medical Marijuana Use Registry is an online database for the registration of the qualified physician, patients, and their orders. The information in the registry is confidential, so don't just do searches for people because you want to see if they're in there. So of course we quoted the statute there. And then, so getting straight into the changes. So now when a patient logs in, they'll go to manage my information and they'll see only two drop downs. You'll get the patient card and the patient profile. After clicking the patient card, they will arrive at their application history dashboard. If it's a brand new patient, they'll see begin initial application. If it's a existing patient, you'll see the renewal option instead of the begin application. And then they can update their information with the update address tab that's there, or the begin the renewal tab. Oh, I'm sorry, missed a page. These, whether you click initial application, renew, or change address, are the pop-up confirmations that you'll want to. It's just basically, are you sure you want to proceed, and you'd select yes. And please tell me if I'm going too fast so you guys can read what's actually on the screen. And then for starting renewal or change of address application, you'll see this screen. On the left-hand side is what we currently have in the system, and on the right-hand side is what the information that pulls back. So if it's correct, you would just hit apply. If it's not, you would want to hit go back and update the information. If you're going the HSMV route, it's really important that if it's pulling wrong with the HSMV, you'd want to contact the HSMV to fix that information. It's quicker to go the HSMV route than to the manual route. That'll add 5 to 10 days. So even if HSMV is wrong, it's quicker for them to probably contact HSMV, get that updated, and then come back and do the HSMV route. And then for here, this, I have this on display over next door, so if you guys have any additional questions after this, we can get into a little bit more detail, but this is what the new screen looks like for being in your application with all of the nice little tabs off to the side instead of the scroll. So that was one of the big changes we made. And then here, this is the information on file for your application. If it's correct, then you would just click continue. And then again, if it's incorrect, then you would want to do update my information. If it's a seasonal or non-permanent resident, this is where they would update and have to do the more the manual route than the HSMV. And again, if it's wrong with HSMV, they need to get it fixed with them. So then a little bit more on the permanent Florida residents versus non-permanent Florida residents or your seasonal residents. And then this is for the photo. So if they have to update upload their photo. If they want to upload their own photo, they can. For your seasonal residents, they would have to if they're not in HSMV. So you would want to do, then of course off to the side, you have photo requirements. It goes over, it has to be a passport style photo. So I know not everybody likes their driver's license photo and they want to do their own. We don't really encourage that because again, that adds the 5 to 10 business days. So we encourage them to do the HSMV route, but you would select supply a photo, and then in here it explains with the pop-up that check state ID is the HSMV route. It explains that that is like more of an automatic trusted source, or again, you can do supply my own photo. And then here, this is just showing the difference for your seasonal residents or anybody that did supply my own photo. You can see that it has the exclamation mark because now it needs to be reviewed, and that's where it would take that additional days for processing versus the HSMV route where it is an automatic check and good to go. And then now, moving on to supplying proof of residency. So you'd click supply proof. And then again, you're given a pop-up and you can do the check state residency through the HSMV, so it'll pull back what HSMV has, or supply my own. So the next slide, we're gonna show what it would look like if they uploaded their own, especially for the seasonal residency individuals. They can upload those documents, it'll show you there what it looks like, and then they would just click continue, and then it would, again, need to be reviewed internally. And, sorry, let me get to my note page. So this is just where you would do apply if what pulled back is accurate, and then you could do, of course, supply manually if what's not there is accurate or isn't accurate and you want to update it. And then again, this is the print screen of the HSMV route, so it's automatic check, everything's good, it's an electronic trusted source. And then moving on to the profile changes. Oh, what happened to our picture? Well, there's supposed to be another picture with X's. Oh, okay, somehow it got put on a show up later. I don't know how that happened, sorry, they should have all just showed. So if they went and everything's approved, everything's good, they have an active certification, open orders, you'll see all the green checks. If they do not, then you'll have all of the X's next to those things. So this is an easier way to see what's good and what's not. And then here, this is what I had on display yesterday to show the new open orders page. This is where they'll land when they do patient profiles. So it will show all of the low THC medical marijuana smoking orders and their details, such as the amount ordered by the physician, the milligrams per day, the delivery device authorization, and the dispensable amount from the orders and routes. And then here, this is just to show that some of the buttons at the bottom will no longer open up its own, not all of them will open up its own page. Some of it, like the last slide, will actually just open up to the right of the profile. However, your Manage My Profile card, that will still open, and the history information, that will open up in a new tab still. And then to get into the order details, so once you click on the orders, it'll show all of these rows. So it's your start date, your end date, the number of days the order is open, the type of marijuana the physician has ordered for the patient, and then the status. So it would be open, scheduled, expired, completed, or canceled. And then it would show the information, the physician's name and who placed the order. And then, of course, you have the plus and signs, which will expand on this. So in the next print screen, we expand one of these. And then once the order has expanded, you will find the routes the physician has recommended, the amount ordered and then the milligrams, the delivery device if it was authorized, and then amounts remaining for that specific route within respect to what's been dispensed. So you'll see their amounts remaining off to the side. And then again, you can open up these even further. And then once you open up here, we'll show where we expanded even more. So this shows the status of the documents, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped a page. This shows where it expands it in the history, so it'll show the date of the dispensation, the MMTC that dispensed it, the amount dispensed, and the status. So the status is whether it was given to the patient or the caregiver. I would stress to make sure that your patients pay attention to this. So if they're the caregiver, it doesn't say it was dispensed to the patient, because if the patient's not with them and they leave the dispensary, if they get pulled over, that could potentially cause problems for them. So they need to make sure if it's the caregiver, it was dispensed to the caregiver. If it's the patient, it was dispensed to the patient. You also have delivered to the patient or to the caregiver, and then there's to be assigned, which is waiting to be assigned to a deliverer so it can be sent out. And then this one, show the certification. This shows the certification documents, so the patient can click see cert docs located underneath their profile. This will show any of the documents the qualifying physician has created for the active certification. So you have RFEs, which are requests for exceptions, CMPs, which are consent for minor patients. Those are only required to be completed when the patient is a minor. And then you have what we call the 2-piece second physician concurrent. Those are if a minor patient is trying to get smokable and it needs to be approved by two physicians. And then you can see the statuses of those documents. The physician can see it and the patient and the caregiver can see it. So you'll see not yet submitted, so the physician hasn't submitted it, submitted, so then it's waiting for review, and then needs more information. So that's where we've probably sent it back for a better statement or a documentation. The statement needs to state the medical benefits, not a financial benefit. It needs to not state that they're getting more so they can make their own product. That is not allowed. So the benefit should not state that. So needs more information is where we have blurbs that go with it that kind of explain what the issue is and what we need more information on. And then of course there's approved. And then show dispensable amounts. This provides information on how the much product has been dispensed to the patient within the 35 and the 7-day rolling periods, how much available product the patient can be dispensed, and the individual dispensation history. So there's a lot more information. I didn't put too much because we didn't want to run out of time. This page goes into the dispensable amounts and contains the calculations for the medical marijuana, smoking order types, as well as the individual route calculations that have been authorized by the physician. It shows the aggregated calculations, and the aggregated calculations is the sum of the total dispensation history across all medical marijuana routes. It goes way more in detail in our guide. The guide is understanding the registry and understanding the amount available calculations page. So it goes in a lot more details. I know there's a bit of confusion usually with this aggregate and the dispensable amounts and available amounts. So there is a guide specifically for understanding that information. So I encourage you guys to go look at that if you have any additional questions. And that's all I have. And back to Todd.
I'm sure many of you are quite familiar with our website, so we kind of brought this up to show that all of the information that Cassie just covered and stuff are in the guides on our website. Know the Facts, mmj.com is our official site. I threw this up here on our registry page. You'll see we have guides for our patients and caregivers, MMTCs, law enforcement, and of course physicians. So you guys could go here and pull down all of these guides. If there's questions that you have or something that you're looking for, you can go to here and find pretty much anything that you're looking for. And this is just an example. So this is the qualified physician when it's opened up. Those are all the guides and stuff that are available for them to go in to look for information and stuff on how to put orders in, how to do RFE, all of that stuff is in there. So it's all there for you guys to be able to see. We threw this in. We do a lot of presentations around the state. We do a lot for physicians, caregivers, patients, and of course law enforcement. One thing that we're hearing a lot from some of our stakeholders, especially our patients and law enforcement, is there's a lot of misinformation or unknown information from our patients out there about what they can and cannot do. The patients do not understand that they are not supposed to have this in their vehicle. So really, we'll start this off real quick. Patients do not understand that the statute says it's up to the individual employer to decide on whether medical marijuana can be in their organization or not. So statute does not give any protection to organizations. It's totally up to the organization. So it's really important for that patient to talk to their company or whatever before they get in the program to make sure that they're okay and covered, that the organization is good with them being a medical patient, and if that organization does do a drug test or something, that they have their medical card and stuff to prove it. Again, it's totally up to the organization. The state wrote it in that they leave them to decide who it is. Again, a lot of people do not know this. We've had phone calls and stuff where we had a patient, she quit her old job, she applied for a new job. That new job required a drug test. She went, she failed, they didn't hire her. So she called us saying, what can I do? And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. So it's something that we tell them, you've got to check with them before you do anything with our program. So legal use of marijuana. Again, it cannot be used out in a public area. On buses, vehicles, anything like that, it cannot be used. It's got to be used on private property. This is a big misnomer and stuff that we get with patients and stuff, that they think they can pretty much, they have their card, they can use it wherever they want to. They can't. Except for low THC, they are not allowed to use it in public areas. It's got to be in private property. Again, anything that they have or are purchased and stuff's got to come from a medical marijuana treatment center. They're allowed to have the 70-day limit in their possession at one time. And then, of course, the aggregate is 4 ounces that they can have in smoking unless they have an RFE in the registry and stuff. And then it's 1.6 times that RFE amount. So technically, if they were written an RFE for 4 ounces, they would be allowed to have 6.4 ounces on them for possession purposes. But again, they don't understand this. This is not being explained to them enough, and they do not understand that this is what they have to abide by. At the bottom is really the most important thing on this slide that we've really highlighted, of course, in black, we bolded. They have to have it in that original MMTC packaging when they move it around. That is for, 1, their protection, and 2, for law enforcement to be able to tell what is legal and not legal. So they've got to have it, and it's got to be in that MMTC packaging. It's got to have that label on it that says where it comes, what it is, what the percentage of THC is, all of that stuff. They have to have it when it is in their vehicle if they're pulled over by a law enforcement officer. So it's really important to drive home that they've got to keep it in that original MMTC packaging. We have patients who move them over to Tupperware containers, mason jars, you name it. They put it in there and then think it's fine for them to move it around because they have their card, and it's not. The statute says they've got to keep it in that original packaging. The medical marijuana card, of course, all of you know, it's renewed every year. They have to have that card on them. Again, we do have the circumstance to where if they're a newer patient, it can take anywhere up to 30 days for them to get that card. So they're allowed to use that initial email and stuff to have that when they go to an MMTC, or if they're transporting it and they're pulled over from law enforcement, they're allowed to use that email and stuff to show that they're allowed to get it until they get their card. But they are really supposed to have that card on them, and of course, excuse me, it's a misdemeanor and stuff if they don't. So it's really important to drive home to the patients that that card needs to be carried with them at all times. Again, we covered this, that it can't be used near it. We kind of call this our Dr. Seuss one. It can't be used in a vehicle, airplane, train, or boat. It can't be used on any of those things. And you'll notice the end part is really, really, really important. It's under the influence. So we have a lot of patients who think I smoked it an hour ago, I'm perfectly fine to get in my vehicle. No, they're not. Just because they said I used it at home and now I'm driving, They're not allowed to do that. It's got to be, it's that under the influence is the important part of this. So again, we've got to really strive to our patients and stuff that this is things that they have to be aware of when they do it, especially our patients and stuff that use the gummies or use edibles, because again, can take up to that hour or so to use, and then for it to go through that body, it can be a long time that they can be under the influence of that product. So it's really important, and again, we need the MMTCs and the physicians and stuff to help drive these points home. We're trying to make it safer for our patients, and if they're, for lack of a better word, ignorant of this stuff, then they're going to put themselves at risk when they go out and put others at risk if they think they're okay to drive and things like that. So it's really important. Reciprocity. Florida does not offer reciprocity from any other state, so it cannot be brought in or taken out of state. So if you guys have patients that are seasonal and they're coming from another state that has medical and they bring it in with them, they are breaking the law. So again, they cannot bring it in or take it out of the state of Florida. And again, patients don't understand this. They think, oh, I have my medical card from Colorado, I can bring it into Florida when I visit and I'm perfectly fine. They're not. So these are on our website. These are our tip cards. We originally designed these for law enforcement. They were designed to law enforcement, if they did encounter it on the road, had these, but we've been also using these for our patients and stuff to give out to them. This really highlights the important parts of the statute, mainly what I covered before about reciprocity, about the packaging, about not being able to use in a vehicle and things like that. So these are on our website and stuff, and they're on our website in printable form under our law enforcement tab. But when we go to conferences and stuff, we try to hand these out to our patients and everything so they know what's happening and stuff with the laws in the state of Florida. So real quick, our program. As of Friday, we're at 916,345 people in the, right now, patients in the state of Florida, 2177 on our physicians, and then of course we have currently the 28, which will change, the MMTCs with 720 dispensing locations and stuff throughout the state. We like to show this slide to kind of show the growth and stuff of the program. Of course, when we started in 2017, we had the 41,000, and now we're sitting at 916. That's really all we can talk about. We do presentation stuff. The OMMU has an outreach team, which myself and Summer in the back and other members are part of. We go around the state educating. We try to meet as many groups as we can, be it law enforcement, be it physicians, be it patients and caregivers, just to show them what the program is, what they can and can't do, and things like that. So if you know of anybody who's interested, or you have your own organizations and stuff that want to come out and have us talk to them and stuff, that's what we do. My contact information's there. I also have my card at the booth and stuff. So you guys can just ask, come talk to us. And then we're going to open it up for questions.
Thank you. That was excellent. My question is, since medical marijuana or marijuana stays in the system a long time, and you said you can't drive when you're impaired, where's the cutoff on when it's detectable? Because we know it lasts maybe 30 days in urine, 90 days in blood. And how do we tell a patient the right thing on that?
We work system to like we do with alcohol, that you can go into a breathalyzer to see what it is. It's got to be the patients and stuff learning. A lot of what law enforcement has to do now is on scene, if they detect marijuana or even alcohol, they have to prove impairment. So they go and of course they do all of we have what are called DREs, drug recognition experts, that are law enforcement officers throughout the state, and they're brought person go through the tests and stuff to make sure that they can or are not supposed to be driving. So unfortunately, it's a really hard question. I know they're out there working on it. I think the big thing that they last 30 days in the system, we're not saying don't drive for 30 days. But what law is trying to say is if you feel different, you drive different. So, and again, it's hard because especially younger people, we feel invincible. I mean, when we're that age, we feel invincible and, oh, I had 6 drinks, I'm good, I can drive, it's no problem. So it's really an education process of letting them know, hey, if you've done this and there's even the smallest question about it, get a designated driver, have somebody else take you, whatever you need to do, if there's even that slightest bit of doubt for right now, until we can get a test to prove that. So it's really just educating them on, hey guys, if you even feel a little bit different, don't do it. Because you're putting yourself at risk, whoever else is in the car at risk, and then other people on the road at risk.
Todd and Cassie, thank you for being here, and I love your help desk when I call up there. They're very patient with me. But my question I have, because Cassie was saying what we call DMV is a trusted source. Why is it with the patient IDs, we have to upload them, they have to wait like they're a seasonal resident then?
Why do they have to be manually uploaded if they're seasonal resident?
Correct.
Is that what your question? If they're in HSMV and they're registered here, they don't have to necessarily. It's just if they're not registered with HSMV, then they can't go that route.
So is the patient, the Florida ID card for those who've lost their licenses for substance abuse and things like that, when they have a Florida ID card, I asked the question wrong, why does it take time since it's from a trusted source?
What was that last part? Sorry.
The Florida ID cards for those clients who've lost their rights to drive, when we have them, we have to upload things manually, and it takes longer for them to get approved.
No.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay,
No, it's through HFM. That
Yeah.
card's through HSMV. Their
Yeah.
ID card, their state ID card, we'll pull it. So if it's that state card is through HSMV, we'll pull it.
It doesn't pull? Is that what you're saying?
It does not
I see
pull
your head
it. It
shaking.
does not pull it.
I will look into that.
Yeah, we'll
Thank
look
you.
into
Thank
it.
you.
It's supposed to
Yeah.
pull whether it be a ID card or a driver's license from HSMV.
Thank you, because some of those clients already feel like second-rate citizens because they've goofed up and lost their
Right.
licenses, so thank you.
Of course.
So I had to wonder on that one if the reason is you just don't have the right cooperative agreement yet for that database. But since you are using the driver's license as a database, and my husband, who is a patient and a veteran, has the veteran's designation on his driver's license, we've been trying, and my name is Jody James, I'm with the Florida Cannabis Action Network. We're a 27-year-old organization in this space, participated in the introduction of the first medical marijuana bill since 1978, and later led to what is your office. So we want to know how many veterans are using the program. So what sort of authority would you need, since you're already pulling driver's license and many veterans have already submitted that they are a veteran on that ID, what authority would you need to begin to collect the data on how many veterans are using our program?
Yeah, it's something that we don't, that's not anything that we pull or anything that we do. That would have to go through a public records request and stuff for that to be made. It's not anything that's in our statute notes for even to think about pulling. So a request like that, I'm not even sure we're collecting that data. So it would have to be, we would have to get some type of a legislative thing to allow and stuff like that. Right, because that's not something we pull. Our agreement with HSMV is really just to check that address and to check to make sure that that picture is valid and things like that. So right through that, or it would have to go through our leadership to create a rule to approve that, and then for us to get an agreement with HSMV to go ahead and pull that information. But currently, we're not pulling that information whatsoever. We do, but that is not as quick and as easy as you think it is. So it's not one of those things. And again, we're looked a lot at the emergency rulemaking and stuff for that. So, but again, it could be a suggestion we can make and see if that's something that we can do.
Inquiring minds want to know. I mean, the legislature continues to ask us how many veterans are using the program.
Yep.
And you have the data available.
Well,
Because of the veteran on the ID card.
yeah, we do, but not all veterans do that. So it would be still not.
A checkbox.
It could be, but it's still not foolproof. If the veterans don't do it, then we're not collecting them, not catching them because of it. So.
Oh, to a world that was foolproof.
Right. And we could have an estimate and stuff for it, but currently, like I said, that's not anything that we're pulling or tracking.
For seasonal residents, so they can upload that information now. Did you say it's still like 5 to 10 days for that review? Because I try to encourage all the patients that I help that if you're planning on staying in Florida, go get your driver's license changed first because it'll be real time. So is it about 5 to 10 days for the upload, for it to be reviewed, yada, yada, yada?
Yeah,
And they still get the magic email once all of that stuff is done? So-
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, it's that 5-day process because of course it's got to get mailed into us and then it's got to go under the review process.
Well, but I think I saw that y'all are allowed to upload it now, so I was wondering, is that going to expedite the process?
Well, it does because it's really the 5 to 10 days is from when we receive it. So mailing it in takes even a little bit longer because if a patient mails it in, depending on how the U.S. Postal Service is working, if we get it within a day or two, then the process starts. But if the Postal Service is running slow and we're at 5 days, then we can't start on it until that. But yes, uploading it starts it immediately, gets it into the queue to be reviewed.
So they just have to scan their cell phone bill or their mortgage payment or whatever?
Yeah, they've got to have the 2 proofs of residency. Usually we ask for something like a lease or something. If they're here for 31 days, they usually have something like that, or they can get something like that. And then usually financial statement or something similar to that just to prove of what the location they're saying is a location that they're at for that amount of time.
Okay, I'm going to piggyback off his comment about uploading the seasonal resident stuff. Any chance you guys are going to open up the very restrictive megabytes that this upload has to be? I mean, most iPhones, which is how most patients are coming in, maybe the Androids are too, we take a picture of their documentation. It's too big. So then you try to take a picture of the picture. It's still too big. I mean, sometimes it can be 20 minutes worth of trying to adjust the size because it is so restrictive with, what is it, like 2 megabytes? I mean, take a look at what an iPhone takes a picture of. It's way bigger. And that can be really frustrating. We won't send the patients home to try and do it because it's impossible. They just can't.
Yeah, that's something we can look into. We can see if that system and stuff can be upgraded and stuff to do that. Some of that has to do with the load balancing for the system and stuff, to where if we get 300,000, 15 megapictures, then we're having that load issue with it. So I think that's why they originally capped it. But it's something that we can look into and see if that can be expanded. If you have a suggestion on sizes and stuff that you're seeing and stuff, that may be helpful to go ahead and email me and stuff, so then we can say, hey, this is what we're hearing from the doctors. When they take a picture, it's this size. Are we able to get it up to, are we able to allow the size of the files being uploaded to be this file?
Okay,
to be this
thanks.
size.
Hey, Todd. And it's a great, OMMU here. As you know, we've wanted to have a partnership with the OMMU forever. And, Bart and I always commiserate over the fact that we'd love that panel. You know what we want. My question to you is this. You guys go out and you do things around the state and this and that. No physician involvement, of course. If we can get a group of physicians who would be willing to volunteer their time, if you notified us in our specific area when they're coming out to talk to law enforcement or a patient group or whoever that is, if there's a physician willing to take his time to come to the session to assist in the answering of some of these critical questions that sometimes only a doctor can answer, would you be willing to provide you with a list of those names in the various areas of the state where if we were notified, can we show up and assist? Or would there be a thing, well, no, we're not quite sure what you're going to say? Is there something that we can start in a collaboration to that extent to allow us doctors to get out there and continue to provide the essential public service information that you want?
With that, I can double check to see. We've not done any partnerships with it. I definitely think if we're doing a patient type event and stuff, we can definitely ask to see if we're doing that. Law enforcement's a little different. Their questions aren't medically based. Their questions are really just, what can I see in the registry, what are the laws are, things like that. So, but there's a potential, yes, I can bring it up and see if we could get together to do some type of a.
I got it, and I appreciate that. But my point is, when you look at things like under the influence, okay, perhaps it would be appropriate for law and that sometimes under the influence is positive. And I fully commiserate with the, if you don't feel right, then you shouldn't drive. I got that. But what you have to understand is that many medical cannabis patients are utilizing their medications to be active. Right? And that is under the influence. So it's a very slippery slope that way. And you guys have heard me say it in other, lectures. If somebody can come up with a universal impairment scale.
They're working on it.
Well,
there are other states and stuff. There's organ out there that
I
are
got
trying
it.
to. Right now it's blood. Blood's the only way to do it right now.
Yeah,
so
okay.
they are. But to answer your question on that, yes, we understand that they use it. And that's what the DREs, the drug recognition experts, are for. They don't just grab people if the person smells like they have marijuana. They've got to prove that impairment. And so, yes, it's great. They need it to be active and stuff. But then if it's impairing them and they're out endangering people, then no, they don't need to be doing that. So it's a balance that you've got to get. Yes, it's great. This is helping them to be active. But if their activity is in the chance endangering others and stuff, you got to balance that too. Their rights do not supersede the rights of the others out on the road. So you got to kind of really balance that. And again, that's why, because there is no test out there to prove the marijuana and stuff right now, that's what the DREs and stuff are for, to where they're out there just saying this person should not be driving because they're under the influence of something. Could be alcohol, could be marijuana, could be prescription drugs. We're seeing a rise in that. Could be a lot of different things. They're just there to prove the impairment, and then they go on to do the blood tests and stuff to prove whatever that impairment was, be it alcohol or whatever else. But I understand your frustration and stuff, but you gotta go talk to some law enforcement and see their frustration. So they're just on the other side where they're trying to keep people safe, and they're having a hard time dealing with it too.
Thanks, Todd.
Yeah.
So on Cassie's, well, one comment first. So you alluded to it, but I just wanted to, like, a point of clarification. It took me a while to get the new screens with the open order details versus dispensable amounts. Dispensable, to me, sounds like what the patient has dispensable. That was my error for years. Dispensable is what's defined in the statute. So, like, if you have a patient who has no sublingual orders, if you go under this dispensable amount, it says they have 13,000 dispensable, even though you didn't order it, because it's the statutorily allowed dispensable. So with the new update, I would just encourage people, it's the center column underneath the patient's photo, open order details. That actually should give them what they actually have available. So, like, dispense the word, but it's in the statute. Or it's, so y'all just avoid dispensable. My question was related to what you said to caregivers. So if there was not a dispensation under the caregiver, they could still get in trouble. Does it not give them the right to possess, even if it wasn't purchased by them? So if I have a daughter taking her mom to chemo and she has her product with her, the daughter drops the mom off at her home, mom leaves her product in the car, that caregiver is not protected?
Yes, she is. As long as she's the caregiver to that patient. So
So even if there was never a dispensation in the registry, that person is still protected with the caregiver card?
And they have product?
If they have product because her mom left it in the vehicle. Her mom bought it, left it in the vehicle when she got out after giving her mom a
because
ride.
again, if it's in his proper packaging and stuff, if it's in
and it has mom's name on it, not daughter's name.
Right. The law enforcement officer is able to check to see who she is a caregiver for. So if she's listed as a caregiver for, we'll just say Mary Smith, if she's Gina Smith and it's her caregiver or her patient is Mary Smith, and the medicine and stuff is in its proper packaging, all of that stuff, and it's to Mary Smith, the officer can check, and most likely she's covered, she's fine.
Even if she never purchased it? I just want to
The
clarify.
caregiver herself?
The daughter never went and made a
Yes.
transaction.
Yeah,
'Cause from what
It's-
Cassie said, I thought it said it had to record a transaction in the registry. But as long as it's an active caregiver card, they're protected.
You're talking about who it was dispensed to, is what you're talking about.
Correct, yeah, because I've never even thought about checking to see if it was dispensed to the right person, the caregiver versus the patient. I just thought the caregiver had protection if they had a caregiver card.
The main part with that is just for the accuracy of the dispensation, but like Todd said, they are still covered if the law enforcement goes in and looks and validates that relationship with that, they should be fine. But I can't guarantee all law enforcement would go that deep into it. So that was just my main point in that, just if it really should be dispensed accurately to whoever it's being dispensed to. So the patient or the caregiver should see on the information who, like it should say given to patient, given to caregiver, that just really should be accurate just to make sure there are no issues. But yes, they would be technically covered if the law enforcement went in and saw they are the caregiver to that patient.
And then final law enforcement part, do you educate law enforcement about the initial patient email and that is valid?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the big things. We have a big slide and stuff in our presentations of law enforcement that shows that email, that lets them know that if the patient has this, then it should have the dates on it. Now, of course, we run into, if the patient has it, it's a year old, there's a problem. They shouldn't have that. They shouldn't, if they didn't get our card, they're really supposed to let us know as quick as possible that they didn't get our card so we can resend it or whatever we do. But in that first 30-day period and stuff, if they have that email and stuff, they're fine as long as they have that email.
Was saying about, I think the language or something, and offer a tip to some newbies here. We go to property tax office records, download the most recent tax bill, which shows the client's name and the address, and we upload that, and your people have always accepted it. It's small enough file so it doesn't jam things up, because if you have a mortgage and it's page 1 or whatever, your people require all the pages, which makes sense.
Yep.
But with the property tax bill, it's a single page, and it works perfect every time.
Yeah, federal documents or state documents are real easy to verify.
My name is Paul. A patient of mine, he is a federal employee. He's an FBI. And he was offered to go to a marijuana certifying physician to go get the marijuana to relieve his pain. And he said no, he cannot get that one because his children and wife will lose the benefit of that he will get from the federal government. And how do you see it, and how can we solve it?
Again, the federal government is way different. So that's up to them to decide on whether they can do medical marijuana or they cannot. So originally, I guess it was even like 5 years ago, veterans had a problem, and now that's changed to where as long as they've got their card, that has kind of gone by the wayside. The VA doesn't still look favorable on the marijuana, medical marijuana and stuff, but they'll let it go. Those organizations stuff, it's got to be a decision from them to allow it. And with it being federally illegal, that's what you run into and stuff with a group like the FBI. We see it all the time with bases around the state. So we have military bases throughout the state, and some of the military personnel think they've got a card, they're okay. On base, it's illegal. The U.S. government is like, nope, in the U.S. military, there is no medical cards, no nothing. So it's one of those things to where that's why we try to tell people, you got to make sure what happens. And we don't have any power to overstep the federal government. So that's got to be a decision that the federal government would have to make, and would have to be some pressure put on them to kind of make those changes.
Thank you.
Morning. I have a list, I'm sorry. I'll apologize in advance. The first one is about the demographic updates. It seemed like in the presentation that patients now have a little bit more availability or ability to update especially the driver's license number. With all this certification and verification to get that gold star on the driver's license now in the state of Florida, they're changing patients' driver's license numbers. So the physicians are actually having to go in to manually update those, and we don't have access to do that. And it always seems like it's a back and forth where the patients are getting mad at us because they're calling the helpline and they're saying, yes, your doctor has to update it. And we tell them, we can't update it until the state opens it up. And there just needs to be a little bit better process because we have patients that are cussing us out on a daily basis because we don't have access to update that information.
Let me look into that, because I was under the understanding you could update those, because that's
We
why we
cannot.
send them to you.
Right, no.
Is the physicians, just like email addresses and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the only fields that we have access to are weight, phone number, and email address. Those are the only 3 fields that the physicians have access to.
So for a renewal, you're saying, once you establish that patient
Correct.
and stuff afterwards,
Correct.
those are the only
Yes.
fields that you have access to? Okay,
Yes. And
we'll look
that-
into it and I'll let you know.
Okay.
We'll see if we can look into that and see what needs to be fixed on that end.
And that goes into also the out-of-state IDs and things like that. If a patient doesn't, if the physician just happens to miss that they're out of state, it is a back and forth for weeks at a time trying to get the state to open those fields back up for the physician to reset it to an out-of-state ID. We try to tell patients, if you have an out-of-state ID, wait 24 hours before you start your application so that we can check your chart and make sure everything's done. But if that patient goes in just like a Florida resident and starts their application right away, it is sometimes weeks and months before we're able to get that patient fixed because of the back and forth.
What do you mean by the out-of-state ID?
So, if the physician doesn't notice that they have an out-of-state ID in their chart and doesn't mark that they're a seasonal patient, and then that patient goes in and starts the application, we're completely locked out of it. We can't go in there and edit it and make them seasonal once the patient has accessed their application.
Right, okay, yeah, because at that point, they're put in as a
Correct.
resident of the state of Florida, and they have to be unhooked for you guys to be able to make those
Right.
changes.
And it can sometimes take weeks, and I had a patient almost take 5 months to get hers resolved.
Okay,
Yeah.
definitely should not take that long,
Yeah,
so,
I think I copied you on some of those emails. She was not very nice.
yeah, I'll double check
Yeah.
that, because that should be done relatively within, that 48-hour
Right.
to,
Yeah, and it's
period.
not ever 48 hours.
if there's a
I can
request
promise.
to unhook them, so
Yeah.
yes.
And then, let's see, on a whole different note, we still don't have a way to backdate orders, and there are reasonable reasons why a physician would want to backdate orders. And that's something that just causes a lot of frustration and confusion with our doctors. If a patient hasn't released themselves from another physician, and, we try to make sure that the visit date and the recommendation date are the same date, and now we're no longer able to do that because we can't backdate orders still since the update last year.
So explain to me again why you would be backdating orders?
Because we want the visit date and the recommendation date to match in our system so that they're actually getting that 210-day recommendation and that their certification date ends exactly the date that they saw us.
Right.
Until they deactivate themselves. So if they're not punctual, or the other physician's office isn't punctual about working on that, we can't put that back to the day they were actually seen.
Correct.
We have to start that certification from that current day, and that's not right.
Right.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a safety protocol that's put in there for that. They've got to be released by that old physician. We can't have them see 2 physicians at the same time.
Right.
That's how, because of whoever's their physician of record at the time is the one who's allowed to do recommendations and stuff for them. They've got to be released by that other physician and stuff
Right.
first for you guys to be able to go in and do anything with them.
Right, and then the patients don't remember their email, they can't get in touch with you guys tell them to call their other doctor, and it's another
Well,
48 hours.
Also, the patient themselves can go in and deactivate themselves from a
Well,
physician.
We know, but that half the time, they don't remember their email address, they don't remember their password, they lock themselves out. I mean, it's a whole,
Yeah,
correct. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I understand that, but that's going to open up a big can of worms and stuff if we allow multiple physicians to be
No,
writing.
that's not what we're asking. We're just asking to be able to backdate the orders once they are released. That's the thing that we need. To the current visit date instead of the current date.
Well, yeah, but your explanation was they saw you, and then it still takes a couple of days to deactivate, and you want to go.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Right. Right. Again, I understand that, but it's that safety protocol put into where they can't be seeing two physicians. So I'll see what we can do about that one. That one's a little tough because it is a patient safety issue there to where I'll see if there's a way maybe we can make the deactivation process. But again, it's really important to stress to your patients and stuff, they've got to keep those emails and they got to keep that access because there's a lot that they can do, like I said, deactivate themselves from a patient's. For us, our process is we've got to notify the current physician and we have to give them 2 business days to let us to deactivate. And then if they don't, we can deactivate.
Right.
But
the
we've
point
got that
is-
wait process that we've got to let that physician do it, and that's just the way the processes are written.
Patient has to suffer waiting 2 days for the doctor to hit one button to release them. That makes no sense. It takes 5 seconds to release the patient. A lot of doctors won't even help the patient at all. They call the OMMU, the OMMU takes 45 minutes to get through, and then they don't help them at all. And they're suffering because they don't have their medication.
Right. But then the issue is we're not seeing patients in person. So we have precautions set in place to do as much as possible. We're not HSMV. We don't have people coming in face to face. So we're relying on people on the phone to be who they say they are. So we've got, of course, all the things that we have to go through to prove who they are. But I am telling you, my wife could go on the phone, deepen her voice, she knows all of my information, go in and change whatever she wanted in my program without me knowing if I was in there on my profile or anything I've got, and I would never have an idea that she went in and changed it. So if we immediately go in and do that, we're creating other security risks and issues for the patients. So that's why we've got to go through the processes that we have to do. I understand it's horrible.
Not getting their medication also, that's a security risk.
Yes, it is. Yes. But we're not also creating that. The patient is creating that for themselves because they're not remembering their email address or their password.
Inefficient systems are a huge part of it. Have you ever sent a survey out to any doctor's office asking you their insights on any of the changes you're going to be making? Have you ever contacted a doctor's office before changes were made and to tell them that the changes were going to be made? That's called inefficiency. Patients are suffering.
So the point of my question, though, was to be able to backdate orders. We had it before the update last year, and we really, that would help.
I'll
with
check
some
on
of
it and
this.
see what we can do.
Okay.
We'll give them the explanation of what's happening and stuff and see what we can do to allow you guys to backdate them and see what we can do.
Is there any way to work with the system that certifies the physicians with their licensing to notify them when it's expiring? I've had numerous physicians who go in to see patients and then they just forgot to redo their recertification every year, and so then they're locked out for, a minimum of 2 days. They forget that it's upcoming. Is there any kind of reminder system that we could put in for that, for the physicians when they're coming up on their expiration date?
That goes through MQA, and MQA does say notifications out. We try to match it up with when their licenses due. So MQA sends information out to them that says, hey, this stuff's coming up due. So we do not do anything with their license and stuff, so that's all up to the medical quality insurance to throw that out there for them.
All right, almost done, I promise. I've had some patients tell me when they call into you guys' call center that they are told that their milligrams are too low and they need to tell their doctor to increase them, and that's why they're not able to purchase. And this isn't just a one-time thing, it's been multiple times, so it just maybe kind of steer your people away from giving medical advice, because then it just kind of irritates our doctors quite a bit to
Yeah,
be-
they're not supposed to be giving any medical advice. That's definitely, we'll check into that and see if there's some more training that needs to be done, but they should not be. But again, are you hearing that from the patient? I'll be interested. I'll go back and review some calls and stuff. It may be that the patient is telling them, or the caller agent is telling them that you can't because your milligrams are too low.
Right.
And then may then go on to explain that there are RFE processes, and the patient is taking that as, he told me to go ask you for more. So we've got to be a little careful there. But we can do a little bit of training and stuff on our side to make sure that there's a clear delineation between the two.
And then something that you mentioned about that the patients need to be educated better, and I agree, about, the legalities and carrying their medication and the packaging and all that kind of stuff. Is there anything that could come back on a doctor because a patient says, my doctor didn't tell me?
No, because again, you get into the ignorance of the law thing. It's totally on them. But again, we would be hoping that you guys would go ahead and push to try to educate them. Same with the MMTCs. We really require on them to be the ones to kind of educate them and talk to them about the dangers and stuff.
We're out of time, sorry.
All right, I want to ask everybody if we can give a round of applause to Cassie and Todd. Thank you very, very much. We're at a break right now for 30 minutes. Visit with the exhibitors next door, grab a cup of coffee, and then come on back. We'll wrap up the last